everybody at C-suite level are talking about it, how to leverage it, what are the best ways to look at it, use cases where they can implement it.
Hello everyone, welcome to the next episode of the Analytics India Magazine podcast Simulated Reality. Today we have with us the global head of IT, AI and Analytics at Cognizant, Vijay Basu. Welcome Vijay, how are you today?
Thanks Kashyap for inviting me to the session. It's been a great day so far. I think today Bangalore weather has been nice, so hopefully we have a good shoot today.
Fantastic, hopefully no hailstorms today evening again. We are going to talk about a very interesting topic, a very hot topic which everyone is discussing. But I think there's a lot of hype around it. But I don't know what is happening in the real scape. Since you're working with Cognizant, you have a big team of data scientists building these applications. We are going to try to understand what does it take to actually put LLM models into production and the overall use of generative AI in the broader aspect, right? So my first question to you is, what are some of the clients saying to you? What are some of their driving forces to implement generative AI? Is it just the fuss around it, or is it, do they not want to? Is it FOMO, or is it there's some other they see value in it and these kind of things? So what is it?
No, I think across the industry, with every new technology, there is a hype cycle around it. With generative AI, it's the same. But I think in a very short time frame, generative AI has managed to deliver and show business impact and opportunities to be able to create and transform businesses, right? So it is a game-changing opportunity for most of our clients, and so therefore everybody at C-suite level are talking about it, how to leverage it, what are the best ways to look at it, use cases where they can implement it. There is some hype, but I think there is a lot of good substance and ability to be able to execute on the power of generative AI.
So there is substance in it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Before we kind of go into the details of it, can you give us an example where it has already been put into use and it has produced because you said it has, unlike other technologies, the hype, the time to see the impact has been very small.
Yeah.
So if you're seeing already, what are some, can you just, if we can, with an example, if you can help us explain it?
Yeah, sure, Kashyap. This is probably one technology that I think there has been impact in several industry domains. If you take, we are in the tech field, code generation, generative AI can write code, create images, do text synthesis. So code generation is an area that has been used. I'll probably share an example. Very recently, the leader of a fintech company in India, they have used generative AI to generate code, and this was done by two individuals who had no data science background, machine learning background, and they built a complete code, troubleshooted the whole code in a matter of days, deployed it into production for a use case that is relevant to their business, and it is helping them to give visibility and track costs around certain business process that they are driving. I know of one of the big four companies that is also done an experiment over several months. They've looked at a combination of developers, right from novice to experienced programmers, using generative AI to generate code, and it has truly helped them to improve their overall productivity. Minimum upwards of 20% is what they have shared as an example. There are many such industry examples that we can talk about. Let's say EdTech, right? EdTech is so I was at 2 months back, I was at a premier educational institute, and I was talking to the students there, and I asked them, is there anybody using ChatGPT? My thought was, very few hands would go up. Literally, entire class had their hands up, and they were using it for their homeworks. So just early that day morning, 6 a.m., they had to submit homeworks, and they said they are using ChatGPT to write homeworks. So I was stunned with that, and we have seen the impact that it has had on the edtech industry. A large company in the US, share price has gone down 50%. It is primarily in the business of helping people to study for tests and their home tutoring and homework and they see a big competition from ChatGPT because people are using that technology. So adoption wise, I think generative AI has gone very fast compared to other
Yeah.
technologies.
No, yeah, that's true. Like in terms of adoption, especially when it comes to some of the B2C products, right, which can be used on a day-to-day basis by everyday professionals or non-professionals for different reasons. But at the same time, when it comes to, let's say, a company like Cognizant or any kind of big IT firm, right, and you leveraging um, some API or some kind of a code to existing API to create a B2B existing code. What are some of the factors that are considered, and what is usually the thought process? So when I ask this, I'm asking in the sense that let's say there's a big retailer in the US, right? They come to you and say, build us this generative AI is making a fuss about us. We want to do something. How do they kind of approach this? Are they approaching it in the sense that they are identifying a problem statement, seeing a that generative AI might be useful in this and do something, or are they coming to you and um let's say and saying, you know what, this generative AI, make sure that you have generative AI for us, otherwise we will fall behind in the market or the competition. I don't know which use case is it, and at the same time, what is your thought process in it? Like, how do you, when a client comes to you saying that give me something generative AI, then how do you approach it? How do you handle a client?
Yeah, I think what is very essential with any technology, not just generative AI, right? With any technology, when a business makes a decision to leverage, earlier it was the AI, before that blockchain, then metaverse. What is essential for the success of any project or program where technology is a key player is that you must understand the business objective. What's the business impact? What's the use case that you're looking to deliver out of it? Is it that you want to, in the case of retail, you want to be able to deliver superior customer experience where you're truly able to personalize and create targeted marketing campaigns with the power of generative AI, which makes you to stand out versus competition, helps you differentiate yourself in the market and retain and as well as get new customers, right? That is will help you generate your revenue, top line, bottom line. So our focus has always been with any discussion with customers that we have is what's the business case that you're looking at. Technology can be implemented, but if it's not used, then it is of no value because there is a certain cost aspect to it also, right? So um, typically we take what's the vision of the organization, what's your business outcomes for the that you want to look at, and then within that, what are the specific areas where generative AI could be applicable. We also look for relevance. Okay, it should not be you just want to use the word generative AI and a very small portion of it is generative AI, rest of it is just pure vanilla simple AI predictive algorithm. So what's the relevance of that use case? Is it a use case where truly the power of generative AI would help to transform that business process? Second, cost, and we want to do a cost benefit analysis. There is a generative AI is not cheap. For whatever reasons, people somehow believe you just plug and play and it will start to work. It's not that easy. It requires large amounts of data. It requires high computational power. So there is a cost to the infrastructure that you have to pay for. So doing a full-fledged cost benefit analysis helps to make up the decision whether it is the right way to move forward or not. So those are the some of the parameters that we typically tell any customer to come back with for the success of the project, because technology is the last piece in the entire process. It is primarily the business value that you want to drive and the use case and the cost benefit analysis out of it.
Correct. I think there are, as you mentioned, cost is also one thing, but there are two major aspects to it as well, right? So one of the things is that the business impact, as you mentioned, and the other is the complexity of it, right? And complexity could be a lot of factors. It could be something as simple as data accessibility, right? You want to develop a niche chatbot in some this thing, but if the data is not available enough this thing, then probably it's this thing. So how do you kind of address it? If a customer comes to you and let's say it's I want to build this generative AI,
Hmm.
but this thing. What are some of the factors within the business impact and complexity that are considered to kind of deliver your message to the client and then finalize on a use case or finalize using a generative AI or not generative AI?
Yeah, so there are two aspects, right? One is the business aspect of it. So we typically look at what's the business strategy. So what's the business outcome you want to drive? What's the cost benefit analysis? Then if there are any ethical and legal considerations that you want to, you don't want to deliver a product out in the market where customers see bias in it or are not happy with it or don't trust the output, right? That's the business aspect. The second is the technical aspect of it. So we look at, hey, this will require data, right? At the end of the day, it is a data game. Do you have data available in your systems? Okay, is it, if it's available, is it accessible for us through a central data lake or a data store or whatever may be the case? Okay, if it's accessible, is it clean data? If data is junk, then the generative AI is going to not produce the right results that you want to do. Then fourth piece of it is obviously, do you have the right set of data security, data privacy address? If there is sensitive data, especially when you want to target campaigns towards particular customers or age groups, you want to be sure that the data is, a lot of data is safe and sensitive, and you have the right set of controls around it. Finally, two big aspects that we tend to ignore is the scalability and the infrastructure, right? So this requires heavy computational power. Do you have the existing infra that can support it, or you want to go with, you have to invest additional money to get distributed computing or high power cloud computing networks? The soft aspect which we also try and talk about is, hey, are the people in your organization ready to adopt generative AI, right? Because it requires certain amount of ability for people. You may not have the skill sets in your organization. You may need to reskill your existing talent to build generative AI models, and also people in the organization supporting the fact that, hey, this is a new area that is going to truly transform our business, and going behind it and supporting it 100%, so that the team can go ahead and build it and then do the user acceptance testing and deploy it in production.
Yeah, the adoption is a very interesting part, right? Like for instance, let's say recently IRCTC put up this thing. They took a chatbot and kind of put it on their app, but at the same time, like we are so used to kind of putting the date, putting the this thing, that we usually don't use it. Once you kind of start using it, you realize the power of it.
Yes.
Right. But that is something not in your hand, right? So
But see, what we would also ensure is that as part of user acceptance testing, right, you get a sample set of users. If it is, either somebody who is, where we can go and have them come in and do like a pilot study for us or do a pilot UAT for us before we deploy the actual solution in production. Without that, the product would not be adopted, right? End users would need to feel comfortable with the look and feel, the UX, the interactions. But yeah, depending on age groups, we'll have to figure out who is the digital natives are much more open to experimenting. Different age groups have certain resistance, but it is a continuous feedback and a loop mechanism, right? So you want to go back and continuously get the feedback from the users, pivot, make the changes, and make it more user friendly.
okay, so there is a test behind it, user
Yes.
acceptability test in terms of this. Does it make a big difference if it is, I mean, have you observed it? Then not just generative AI, but in general, that when it is done in a controlled environment, the adoption might have been high, but then when it actually, kind of was deployed in a larger scale, kind of affected. So then what do you kind of do to it?
Yeah, I think today there is no option to pull back, right? Once you're deployed in production and you've gone live and the user is testing, you have to literally work on the fly. You have to make changes on the fly. You have to be able to pivot very quickly and redeploy whatever is required as part of the end user's asks. It does happen, and it's not a very rare phenomenon. It's a very common phenomenon, right? Sometimes there are gaps in the way that we understand or perceive the requirements to be, or the pilot group that we have used is not a representative sample of all the respective populations that we want to target. So those are learnings that we always take and then go back and re-implement them or retweak them or modify them according to the user needs. It's a learning for all of us, right?
Yeah. One of the things that, so I just want to learn, exactly. So when we talk about, or when I talk with leaders, right, they usually explain the kind of adoption of use cases, generative AI, in a very broad sense, right? You have to understand the vision of the company and these things. I want to kind of slightly break down into these things, right? So I want to say, let's say, so let's kind of role play, right? So I work at Analytics India magazine. I come to you. I don't know whether we can afford it. That is way beyond my understanding. But if I come to you, let's say, we are Analytics India magazine. We produce we produce AI and data science news content. We are a big media company, and we want some generative AI. So what would your answer be to that?
I think one area would be, given that you're a media company, the marketing is an area where generative AI has demonstrated impact, given that it is able to write articles, blogs, create short reels, in some cases even full-length videos. So, content writers would be able to leverage the power of generative AI to create new content that is visually appealing, that's more standing out versus competition. And that way you can have your content writers focus more on a ideation or strategy, and then leverage generative AI to really create the collaterals that you want to put out there, or to run specific campaigns that you want to do around the various events that Analytics India magazine has over the year. So specific targeted campaigns to respective the AI and analytics fraternity.
Here what I'm seeing is you are seeing examples that are already
Right.
implemented. So that is your thought process, right? In that case. Now let me give you another scenario. Right? I am a big owner, or I'm a big businessman of a owner of a mining company. I mine gold, right? And or I mine aluminium, right, which is then sold for whatever purposes. And in that case, I want to implement generative AI to save my costs. So what do your thought process be? Something like that.
So taking the example that you have shared, see, mining is an extremely complex process. First you have to find where the respective mineral is located, be it gold or aluminium, right? The whole process of identification of that requires large amounts of data to be crunched and this one. So if the necessary data is available, we can use generative AI to be able to go ahead and find such potential areas where there are enough data sources. And that could be an area that mining companies could look at as part of first finding the locations where they are available. Second, the whole mining process, we can look at if there are opportunities in those business processes where generative AI could really, either enhance their existing mining process better, or come up with something that is much more simpler. See, the mineral is a combination of several, molecules at the end of the day. In generative AI, we could run simulations where you could have new molecular structures created with the desired properties that you're looking for, and that could also be used to say, can we have not real diamonds but something very close to real diamonds? Is there a way to do that? Can generative AI be able to tell us, by doing this specific combination of minerals in a specific quantities, can generate the same properties that you're looking for from that mineral? That's a use case that I think is far off, but I've seen people discussing about that's in the long term of for generative AI to look into.
So here what you're trying to say is you're essentially trying to observe a process, and in those process, if you have the data, then probably
Yes.
trying to fit into it. So essentially, it's very important to understand the process of
Yes.
it, and in that process, if there is some kind of backend, and if there is a backend, then how digitized is it, and then this kind of things, and then evaluating kind of the business impact of it, the complexity of it, then putting it on a matrix, and then kind of trying to solve the problem. Okay. Finally, my last question to you is any innovative areas, or creative out of this world areas, something that we have seen in the movies where is where it is generative AI still unexplored, where you might see something really this thing, because the chat GPT was like a like a pretty I mean, there is still a lot of scope for improvement according to many critics, but for someone who works as a person in market research or and media content, I think it's really phenomenal. Where do you see the next breakthrough? Any unexplored avenues that are there?
Well, this is almost like Star Trek trying to predict the future. So hopefully, we get a sneak peek into the future. So in what I think are areas where um, generative AI. So in the medium, in the immediate term, obviously we see a lot of the typically the strong tech players, the fintechs, the edtechs, banking, automotive, they'll immediately adopt those. In the medium term, I think pharma is a great example where drug discovery process is a very complex, painful, expensive, time consuming. Generative AI could help to find ways to create new drugs and also the efficacy of those drugs, how good those drugs are. Healthcare is an area that I think is highly underpenetrated, and they're not. It's a very tech savvy domain as such, but it's a huge area where a lot of potential is there. For example, when we go and get a scan, right? You typically go for a scan and the report only comes, especially if you're doing a medical diagnostic imaging like a PET CT or a CT scan, you will get the report couple of hours later. Using generative AI, can create the whole content, can look at the image and it can create the whole report in seconds. That is phase one of it, right? Second, can it also do anomaly detection on top of it, right? Looking at the scan, it should be able to tell the doctor, hey, I see potential areas of where the patient has this one anomaly detection. The third area where there's been a lot of talk for several years is personalized medicine. This is an area that I think has not taken off for various reasons. Generative AI has a good role to play in this. Recently, one of my friends was diagnosed with critical illness. So when I was talking to him, I said, do you want to talk with somebody who has gone through this before so that you understand what is going to happen over the next couple of months? It's a long-term illness. And he was like, yeah, it's a good idea, but my age could be different from him. I could have other pre-existing conditions. My immunity level could be different, so it may not be relevant talking to somebody else. So say, truly delivering personalized treatment plans. Generative AI, I think, will have a significant role, can play to enable that, thereby targeted personalized therapies will result in faster recovery of patients. Is my sincere hope that this time it takes off and generative AI will enable that in the long run.
Okay. I think for brighter futures and generative, with that note, I would like to thank Vijay for coming to the podcast. I think it was a great topic. I hope that it helps kind of mellow down some of the hype around it and bring things into production and to a brighter future. Thank you so much, Vijay.
Hey, thanks Kashyap for having me, and I'm very positive about what generative AI can do. It has created immediate impact in many cases. I think it's a technology that's really going to transform businesses, and organizations across the world are going to leverage this very soon and very quickly to be able to drive their new business models or new revenue growth and then stand out from competition.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.